we have changed lives of these stories that they might go through life thinking, this will never work. No one will ever help me. And here we are. And, it just is really an amazing thing. And some people will say, well, I'm not going to apply because you don't have enough money to go around. Well, here's the message to that. Do you need help? Can you ignore the fact that every 60 days I'm giving almost $500,000 away in adoption grants? You want to ignore that? Because someone's getting the money. Why not you? And if you can show us financial need and show us that you're making every effort possible to do this on your own and write a good personal statement, you have as good a chance as anybody else. And you ask for what you need. Okay. So you have to outline it. Don't need $5,000 and ask me for 30, because A, that's not going to happen. And B, that doesn't make you look very good. Okay. So let's be honest. And we're not here to totally take the responsibility off you to become an adoptive parent. We're here to help you and step in where you can't. And do you need to drain your savings to nothing? Maybe not. Are you adopting a special needs child that will need care when you get home? Tell us. Tell us. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you tell me you want a grant because you want to keep going on vacations while you're adopting,
you're not getting the grant.
No, because none of us do as adoptive parents. No one wants to write this check, but we do. And for those who can, we are grateful to that fact. For those who can't, apply to us. Tell us, bring us in the door. All right. You can't touch your IRA. We get that. You have nothing left to bring out of your house in equity. We get that. But you have to tell us. You have to apply. Do not sign the deal as a no before you apply. And that said, yes, we get many more people than we can help, but why not you?
Welcome to the Adoption Roadmap Podcast, your go-to guide through the beautiful, complex, and transformative journey of adoption. I'm Rebecca Gruenspan, a single mom through adoption consultant for over a decade, author of the Adoption Roadmap book, and your trusted guide. In each episode, we dive into real experiences, expert insights, and the raw, honest truths that you will need to navigate your journey. Whether you're just beginning, in the thick of it, or well past placement, you'll find support and community here to help you navigate this unique path with confidence and love. Adoption isn't all rainbows and butterflies. It is life-changing and worth every bit of effort. Let's learn, grow, and journey together on the Adoption Roadmap Podcast. Adoption is expensive, prohibitively expensive, but should finances determine who gets to build a family? Today on the Adoption Roadmap Podcast, we're sitting down with Becky Fawcett, a force to be reckoned with in the adoption world. As the founder and president of HelpUsAdopt.org, Becky has spent the last 17 years making adoption more financially accessible for families who simply don't have an extra $50,000 lying around or more. Under her leadership, HelpUsAdopt.org has gone from a grassroots initiative to a national powerhouse, awarding over $1 million in grants in 2024 and setting the bar even higher with $2.7 million planned for 2025. Wow. But Becky isn't just here to talk about the numbers. She's here to challenge the conversation around adoption. Through her bold, no-nonsense approach in her 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett series, she fearlessly takes on the off-limits topics most people shy away from. Why does adoption cost so much? Why do people assume that if you're adopting, you must be able to afford it? And why are adoptive parents constantly painted as either saints or villains? She's also launching a new podcast called The Fawcett Report, where she's going to mix two of her passions, adoption and fashion, and continues to tackle the harder, less popular opinions about adoption. And if you've seen her Faces of Adoption initiative, you know she's on a mission to showcase the real, diverse, and deeply personal stories behind adoption, breaking down the stereotypes of what an adoptive family should look like. Today, we're digging into it all: the real cost of adoption, the impact of financial barriers, and how to successfully apply for an adoption grant, and the conversations about adoption that people are not having but need to. Plus, we'll get a little personal because if there's one thing Becky isn't, it's boring. So, whether you're deep in the adoption process, considering adoption, or just want to hear a refreshingly honest take on this journey, you don't want to miss this episode. Let's get right into it. Welcome, Mrs. Becky Fawcett.
Oh my gosh, Rebecca, what an intro. I mean, I'm good with that. I like
All
it.
right.
I like
All
it.
right. As my brother-in-law says, I ain't mad at you.
No, no. Some might be, but
Some might be.
that's okay. Should I say I don't care?
Yeah,
I
well,
don't really care.
yeah, that's
I'm not
good.
here to make friends. I'm here to change the world.
That's what I like
For
about
people
you.
adopting, for these children who need homes, and I'm here to change the world for adoptive parents like me and my kids, two adoptees growing up in this world where there's a negative stigma still around being an adoptee. I'm here to change all of that to make it better.
So let's dig in with some of that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Many people believe that adoption is like that me and you are saving a child, but you've been vocal about pushing back on this idea. Why is this a harmful narrative? And how do you reframe
It's a
the
very
conversation?
harmful narrative because it's disrespectful, flat out. And not a lot of people are like, how can you even say that? Well, here's the thing. I am a mom by adoption to two domestic adoptions, newborns, which means I had relationships with their birth mothers and birth fathers in one case, and in one case, a birth grandmother. And to say that I'm saving those babies means that the women who were pregnant with them couldn't. There's a direct polar opposite there in that statement. And as far as I'm concerned, I didn't save anyone with my two adoptions. They saved me. My children's birth mothers saved me. Jane, my oldest, her birth mother saved me when I was in a very dark place coming out of a horrific IVF journey and 5 rounds and 3 pregnancies and 3 miscarriages. And I blew through my savings. So, like, there was nothing left. Nothing left. I was one of these people that had no savings and that someone might have said, can she really afford to have kids? That's what someone was probably saying. And it's me, which we all know me now. They saved me. And Jane being born saved me in a way that I tell her she will never understand. And their birth mothers made a plan. It wasn't that they didn't want to do this and they had obstacles. I was having this discussion last night at 9:30 with my youngest daughter out on the street about her birth mother, who is no longer with us. She is deceased. And I was talking about how, like, she made a plan. She loved you. She wanted to keep you. It wasn't in the cards. And so, because maybe she saved you, maybe that's fair, she found a better place for you to be at that moment. Okay. And that's really it. It's just the people, it's not good. Okay. And let's jump across the ocean to international adoption. And a lot of people use that term. I'm saving these children because they're orphans. So I guess technically, maybe I'll give you that. They're an orphan living in an orphanage. They're going to age out as teenagers to make space for the more babies coming in. So maybe, but it's disrespectful to them and their story because of what they lost in order to become an orphan as a teenager in an orphanage, aging out. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is it. Just get rid of the saving. Okay. And I do talk as a mom. I got saved. That's okay. That's okay. But we're not saving these kids, and it's disrespectful to their story. It really
Mm.
just is. So there's really no good way to say that you're saving a child. It's over. We need to move on. We need to erase that from the adoption wording and move on to something else.
Do you think adoption is a good thing?
Oh my God, I think adoption is a great thing if it's done properly. Okay. If it's done ethically, if and again, part of what we're going to get to later is part of the problem is that everybody speaks for everybody else and everybody assumes that
Mm.
everybody else has the same story as them when they come at ya. And, every adoption is different. I have two domestics, which should have been exactly the same, vastly different stories.
Mm.
Vastly different stories, vastly different pieces. No two adoptions, and quite frankly, no two kids in a biological family have the same stories. Nobody
Yep.
does. So, making the assumption that all adoptions are the same, all adoption professionals are the same, all orphanages are the same. No, nothing is the same. And, but adoption is a really good thing. Ask my kids, ask their birth parents. We have open adoptions now. Oldest is 19, youngest is 15. Ask them. If it's done right, it's a great thing.
I always tell my families you cannot compare apples to apples in adoption
No,
because there's no such thing.
no,
What I do know is that adoption is very expensive,
yeah,
often prohibitively
yeah.
so. So, how does HelpUsAdopt.org address financial inequities?
Yeah, well, the whole thing came to me because, everybody wants to think I have a very charmed life because they look at the facade and they just assume they know what they're talking about. And I guess I do have a very charmed life. However, not in the exact ways you would think. And, so many people over the years said, like the Fawcett's were able to afford adoption and then went back and started this foundation. Well, that sounds like I had buckets of money, doesn't it? Sounds
Yeah.
like it. Sure sounds like it. Here's the deal. I spent every last penny of my life savings to get to Jane. And then I started Help Us Adopt with $20,000 because I did believe that I had to be in pain myself to get
Mm.
others to give me money to follow this dream. So I made a sacrifice, but I didn't have that because I was in the process of adopting my other daughter, Brooke, which that adoption went $23,000 more than what I thought it was going to be, which was a big, oh crap moment. And my grandmother died. So Brooke is my grandmother's legacy because
Mm.
she left me some money. And that's what did it. So did I get lucky there? Yeah. Was I going to do whatever it took to get Brooke home? Yeah. But that was my moment. I'm like, okay, so if this is hard for me, what are other people doing? And the answers weren't good. And that's where Help Us Adopt came into the picture. And then Help Us Adopt really came into the picture to be inclusive in a family mission statement. We are
Mm.
not religiously affiliated. I don't charge an adoption a fee to apply. We were giving the largest grants in the world when we came in 2007. And now at $30,000 for the largest grant, we're in this leadership role. And we have steadily climbed up as the adoption world has gotten worse with the pricing. And it has priced out a lot of families who would make for great parents. And there are way too many children who need to come home for anyone to ignore the fact that something's got to be done to make adoption more financially accessible for all.
I love that you don't charge a fee to apply. I don't even know if there's any others that don't.
Here's
So,
my deal too for those listening. Like, if the fee, quite frankly, is $50 or $75, ask me how I know this. If you're making like under 100 or 150 or wherever you are in this scheme, right? That's your weekly grocery money. That's how my brain thinks. You need that. Let me raise the money elsewhere. These other adoption grant programs, that's how they raise a lot of their money. There are even some people out there who make you pay the fee to unlock their website only for a message to pop up to say, we're so sorry. At the time, we're not accepting applications because we have no money left.
Wow.
That takes a lot of chutzpah. That's a polite word to do that out there. HelpUsAdopt.org is pure help. Pure help. We're here. We're here to make things better. I got a message on Facebook this week of someone who was her social worker told her to apply to us, long story short. And she's very scared to apply to us because we ask financial questions. Now, if you've done a home study, which she has, I don't ask anything that your home study hasn't asked. Mm-hmm. But she was very nervous that if she showed what dire straits they're in with no savings, that she might get somehow reported and her adoption wouldn't happen. The fact that people are thinking this, that's my problem. That's my problem. I was on a Zoom when this message popped up on my phone, and I politely, I don't think anybody on the Zoom noticed, I wrote, take a deep breath. I'm coming back. You're fine. I'm on a call. You're fine. You're good. And I said to her, I didn't have any savings. It was gone. It was gone. It was gone. You're not alone. We give grants to people who have absolutely no savings. And she said, the savings we had went to the first portion of this adoption, and we can have a child. We can afford a child day to day.
Right.
But we can't afford the lump sum cost of adoption. And this is why we're here. You're not alone. No one's reporting you. Believe me, I've seen financial situations that are so bad. I don't understand how the home study company ethically gave a home study with the stamp of approval and took the $3,000 from these people in the first place. And no, we don't give grants to those families. But no one gets reported. We're a compassionate organization. We are here to help. HelpUsAdopt.org is one of the good guys. And these days the list of good guys in the adoption world is dwindling fast.
Well, and you just alluded to, some questions about how people even get approved sometimes with the stories that you're seeing, which leads me to my question of what systemic changes do you think need to happen to make adoption more accessible or just in general? I mean, I know that's opening up a can of worms,
but so good. And this is the deal. Since I came into this world, the gloves are off because you can't facilitate. I knew change needed to happen when I couldn't find an organization to go support my initial goal, because I'm a publicist, was to go find a grant organization, take them on as a pro bono client. I couldn't find one that I agreed with for many different reasons. And the primary one was the application fee. The other one was the whole religious association, which again, you can be as religious as you want. I don't care. But that is not a determining factor of whether you should or shouldn't adopt, in my opinion. I didn't like these small grants. I thought those were terrible. I didn't like, there was a list of stuff. I didn't like the lack of transparency. And most of all, I didn't like the non-equality stance. Everybody is a family. Everybody is a family. And just because you don't look like me or my husband in any way, that doesn't mean you're not a family. So I was very proud to make my changes from the beginning. And believe me, I got some nasty calls from other adoption grant programs telling me my board wants to meet with you and approve your work. Are you kidding? I ended those calls quick. I ticked people off the minute I came into the play. And that's when you know you're doing something that needs to be done. That's when you know that other people are not as comfortable with the crap they're doing out there. So the cost, number one. All day long, I keep saying to people who will listen, and maybe they are forced to listen and they don't really care, but why is this angry blonde seemingly one of the only people in the entire United States of America that thinks the cost is outrageous, that thinks people need to be able to afford adoption? for the child welfare aspect of it all. Not to mention, we already talked about being disrespectful. Let's be respectful of what people earn. Let's be respectful of how they've built their family and the education levels they have and the houses they live in and where they live in our country. Why can't we be respectful of those families for who they are and help them get to the end? I seem to be the only one shouting these words. It's okay. I don't mind being the only one because I'm not scared of that. I also think the process sucks, and I am going to use that term. I sort of had the money. I drained it all, obviously, nothing left, but I had the money to drain. That's the difference. And I'm going to tell you something. My first adoption, I was a little more full of myself. Didn't really know. And I was like, how hard could this be? I'm an overachiever. I'm a type A. I can hire the best lawyer I can find. Great.
We have a lot of love. We'll
I have
get
a lot
to
of
that in a
love. Look
minute.
at me. Perfect, blonde girl, whatever. Little infertile. Joke. Little infertile, but other than that, whatever. Perfect blonde girl. Turns out not so perfect blonde girl, but that's another story for another day. And our first adoption was exactly 40,000 on the nugget, just like it was agreed upon or thought to be agreed upon. And it took from signing on with the lawyer till the day Jane was born, 10 months, almost a pregnancy. Had some bumps in the road, but nothing too bad. How hard could this be, thought Becky Fawcett, if you have the money to spend? Fast forward to adoption number 2. I moved states. I can't use the lawyer I loved. I signed on. I'm not outing, a different adoption professional in a different state, because New York State is a problem. If anybody's listening, New York City is a problem. Not a great state to adopt from. Used an out-of-state professional. Thought I'd done. How hard could this be? I have the money again. At least I thought I did until piece it together. How hard could this be? I've already done it once. Well, the perfect little blonde girl got my ass handed to me on a platter. Well, everybody now understand my 2.5 years and $63,000. Nightmare. Now, Brooke, said daughter from said adoption, knows this story. She wasn't the nightmare. She was the only redeeming factor at the end of this that made me sort of understand why I had to go through that crap to get to her. And she thinks it's funny because she's like, no one makes Becky Fawcett wait except me. Well, true. So she loves that ownership of it all. But the problem was this. Most people only adopt once. And so they don't do what I did. They don't adopt twice in 2 different states with 2 different people. And if they adopt twice with 2 different people, it's usually because they had a really bad experience and they're trying to find a better experience, if they're even living to talk about it from the bad experience. And that is the truth. So I was a conundrum in this formula. And it was on paper what I did for a living with my PR firm, and on paper that I had started Help Us Adopt, because foolishly at the beginning, I thought all the adoption professionals were going to love me. Here I am raising money to pay your bills. They didn't, and a lot of them still don't, because I pointed out the flaws. And, this is where it all is. It's the flaws. And the system has to change, because I was doing the same type of adoption. Didn't work. The place told me that my book needed to go out 6 to 9 times before we were chosen. Back then, dinosaur, there was none of this online stuff. And in New York State back then, illegal to be online in New York State. That's all changed. Now there are no books, technically. It's now all digital. Our book, with the perfect little blonde girl, married to the J. Crew looking guy with the perfect little blonde daughter already adopted. Macy's picture frame we were. No one wanted us. I stopped counting when our book went out 29 times. 6 to 9, they told me. No, I got Brooke. It's all good. But the process sucks. It's awful. It's not even feasible sometimes when you have the money. And again, no one wants to deal with it because change is hard and change is uncomfortable. And if things have been working, which I'd like to define working, for decades, why would we change it? Well, because it's not working anymore. It's not working. Ask any adoption professional today. Not as easy as it used to be, and it wasn't easy back then. So these are the things. And then my last comment to this before I talk way too long on this topic is this is not my question to answer. Same reason when I get asked, why is adoption so expensive? Not my question to answer. The adoption professionals set the rates and they set the rules. And then they set the bar. And then they set what we're willing to not look at. So again, sum that all because there are some good guys out there. But it's the adoption professionals' question to ask is what is systemically wrong with adoption today? How can we put more kids in homes? Because quite frankly, I was pretty sure when I started this whole thing, that's what we were all trying to do. Child welfare. What happens to these kids who don't have homes? What happens to these women in unexpected pregnancy situations who need to make an adoption plan? Who takes care of them? Just food for thought.
Ladies and gentlemen, Becky Fawcett, you're welcome.
And we've only just started. What else do you have for me? Let's get the next.
Well, let's talk about love. Is love enough?
Oh,
is
Christ.
love enough?
Is speaking.
As long as I can love a child, I have so much love to give.
No, because as I show my kids, parenting is hard. And a lot of people say that birth parents don't love their kids, and that's why they, quote, give them away. I'm making air quotes to those who aren't
watching on YouTube.
It's a horrifying thing to say. And I've actually met birth parents, my own children and others. Love is the whole reason they're here. They want more for this child. The love factor is stop saying that, and it's not enough, and they know that, and that's why they're looking at adoption. Okay, so I show my kids how hard it is to go to work as a working mom, right? How hard it is to be the caretaker with a full-time job, how hard it is to do all this stuff. But the number one reason with adoption that love is not enough is this. Are we, whether it's society, adoption professionals, birth parents, adoptive parents, families of adoptive people, like my family, right? They didn't adopt Jane and Brooke, but I'm part of a bigger family. Are you acknowledging the child's story? Whatever that might be. And again, every adoptee has a different story. Are you adopting the fact that they're acknowledging the fact that they are adopted? Mm-hmm. They don't come home and that disappears, just like me, always infertile. Just because I became a mom doesn't mean I get to erase that piece of my history, right? Erase that pain of my history. I am always infertile. An addict will tell you that even in recovery, they are always an addict. And when people tell me that I say my kids are adopted because they are, and they will be forever. And people love, ready? Come at me, people. Come at me.
We're adopted. We're adopted.
It's not that my kids were adopted. Now, if I'm talking about the exact court hearing where the judge hit the gavel, yeah, that's the moment when they were adopted. But as humans, they are adopted. They are adoptees, and this is a journey till the day they die. Part of the journey will end the day I die, but their journey will continue until they die. And if I have not set them up to embrace this journey and educate them about their story and make the effort for open adoption and honoring pieces of their birth parents every step of the way, love is not enough.
Thank you for that. And I want to go back to something you said from the last question. And I was going to say I disagree with it, but I think at the time that you adopted, I would have agreed with it, which is that nowadays, if you come back and adopt for a second time, even if you loved your agencies, it might look totally different and it might not be the right place for you today because maybe their numbers have gone way down and they're not doing as much as they used to do. So that piece has changed a little bit when you and I adopted.
I'm going to tell you why I don't like that answer. And
Okay.
I love you. So
okay. No, go for it.
reason
That's why we're here.
That answer is this. Number one, the world changes, period. So as professionals, don't even tell me that some company, maybe an accounting firm, things change. Tax laws change. Their business model might change. And from year to year to year, they have to accommodate for that change with their clients. People who make profit have to accommodate for this. But the adoption world seems to always have, in my opinion, an excuse as to why they don't have to evolve. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. If I hear one more time from a domestic adoption place, lawyer or agency, fair game, telling a family the reason it's taking you so long to place is because there's a shortage of birth mothers. No, that's not it. That's not it. Now, over the years, has being a single woman keeping the child with an unexpected pregnancy become more acceptable? Yes. Has an interracial child become more acceptable for you to be in an? Yes. So there are some pieces along the way that may have changed, but that was decades ago. Okay. The piece that I hate right now, and what I tell people who call me panicking, there's a shortage of. Nope. There are more people adopting domestically because China closed, Russia closed before that years ago, and Ukraine closed because of the war. That is why it's harder to adopt domestically. And the sad part is that most adoption professionals don't want to spend the money to advertise themselves enough to compensate for that change. They don't want to change the way they do business. All they want to do is blame others and make these poor people wait longer, which costs more money. Your home study expires. Your physicals expire. Ask me how I know. Your fingerprint clearance expires. It is a lie that there's a shortage of birth mothers. We write grant checks all day long for babies coming home. Sorry, hate to break it to you. There's probably double the amount of people adopting domestically, although I don't know that for sure because no one wants to do that kind of research. But based on the numbers that were coming out of China and based on the numbers that were coming out of Ukraine and Ethiopia, add that in, they're coming here. So
the numbers the numbers of adoptions domestically have decreased over the years for sure. And where I was going before was that when you and I adopted, agencies were placing, 50 to 100 and something placements a year, where now 20 to 30 might be a lot.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please. Challenge me all day long.
We're going to talk about the media.
Okay.
Every news story. Uh-huh. So if you go and Google, why are adoption numbers down? And go back in articles for maybe, 5 years, 10 years. Because you and I adopted a long time ago. Mm-hmm. What did adoption cost back then? Technically speaking.
40 to 45.
Yeah. So if you go, because I'm a publicist, so I do these things, right, and I raise money to pay adoption bills. So I'm always curious, why are adoption numbers down? I have read every single article out there. I have watched every single news story about this. Unless I'm involved in the story, cost is never mentioned. The rising cost of adoption is never mentioned. I see applicants who their adoption net total is more than their gross pay as a household. Forget their net pay. It's more than their gross pay. Tell me how that's going to work. Tell me how that is people paying attention to families who want to adopt, to make it possible. Because at the end of the day, we all care about the kids coming home. Help me understand that.
But the fact is, there's still always way more families who want to adopt versus the moms who are placing. And that's what I'm talking about.
That is
Those numbers
true.
have gone down.
That is true.
Yeah.
But you never
but yes,
saw wait
money
times
has,
like this.
oh
Never,
yeah.
ever.
The
I mean, and
cost has,
now I'm hearing of professionals, and guess what? I hear these things. I hear these things. I hear of adoption professionals who are now making their adoptive families who don't know any better because they've never done this before. You will pay us X thousand, tens of thousands of dollars. But at the end of 2 years, if this isn't done, we're out. And so are you. What? What? How about the fact that you, as an adoption professional, if I'm giving you tens of thousands of dollars, you now work for me. You've been hired to provide a service that you say you can do and you're an expert in. But you don't even believe in your own self because you've put this 2-year limit on it. In a world right now where we all know that that isn't happening all the time anymore. Didn't even happen for Becky Fawcett back in end of 2006. Brooke came home end of 2009. Didn't happen back then. Why would it happen? Like, the behavior I see is horrific. And as I tell people who are in higher roles in adoption land who say, I don't really agree with you, I always like to point out that as a nonprofit adoption grant person, I'm in different trenches than anybody is. I'm getting these applications, getting over 1,000 a year, to be a rough number. I'm in different trenches than you. And until you listen to what I see, it's not going to change. And they don't want to listen to me because it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. But if you only focus on the few people you're serving as clients who can afford you or somehow figure out to make it work, then you are blind to what is going on as an adoption professional. And this is where I stir the pot and people don't like me. And quite frankly, prove me wrong is what I say all the time. I'll apologize.
anything else that drives you crazy in the adoption world?
That
bring it on.
That
Bring it on.
adoptees can actually be happy with their lives and successful and not hate their adoptive parents and not hate being adopted and understand that they can have both relationships and flourish. Understand that their birth parents can come into their adoptive home and their parents, adoptive parents, will support these people coming into their home, supports their kids. So Brooke, my youngest, has to write a poem. It's due tomorrow. This is what we were talking about on the street last night, 9:30, when we were walking our dogs in New York City. And she's struggling with it because a week ago when she was saying, I have to write a poem that's about love and pain and emotion. And there was more to it. I'm not in 9th grade, so forgive me for paraphrasing. And she's like, I could write about Lou, who's our dog, who she loves. But that seems weird because she's a dog. And I'm like, well, you could write about Lou, but it's hard to have a conversation about Lou. It's hard to, like, dogs are dogs. We all love our dogs. But what else you got, Brooke? Like, let's really do something good. And she goes, well, I don't know. And I go, what about Kelly? Kelly's your birth mother who died when Brooke was 8. And Brooke looked at me and goes, I didn't think of it. And guess who thinks of it? Her unthreatened mom by adoption. And before you tell me that, of course, you're unthreatened because she died, please know that I'm angry. She died. I'm angry. She made very bad choices after she placed Brooke with us. I'm angry for my daughter. I'm angry that I sought out birth mothers who weren't making bad choices at the time because I wanted the lifetime of an open adoption. So there's a lot to unpack in our house over this. And we talked about it on the street. She goes, I'm going to do it. And she goes, but I'm worried it's not going to be good enough. I go, oh, who are you kidding? If you write about half a decent poem about your birth mother, me, you, and the fact that she died, I pretty much think you're getting an A+. So just keep going. But do something with this poem that makes people think about why you wrote it and makes people think that's why you have to include me. Because some people might think that you wrote this poem behind my back without me knowing about it and that you don't want me to see this poem, because that's how typical adoption land works. Tell them I not only suggested it, I encouraged you to do it.
So along the same lines,
yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot of loud voices now that speak up against adoption. What do you have to say to those people?
Before we go on, I'm going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We have so much more to cover.
Shopping for the right hair and skincare products can be tough, especially for multicultural or transracial families. That's exactly why Kate Shanahan created Sweet Peachtree Marketplace. When Kate and her husband adopted their daughter, she realized that caring for her melanin-rich skin and beautiful curls was essential to raising a confident girl. And as a cancer survivor herself, chemical-free ingredients were a must. She wanted one place with safe, natural products for her whole family, plus education and resources for families like hers. Now you can find it all at Sweet Peachtree Marketplace. Just visit sweetpeachtree.com, and because you're a listener of the Adoption Roadmap podcast, if you use code ROADMAP10, you'll get 10% off your first order. sweetpeachtree.com with the code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweet Peachtree, celebrating every curl, every shade, every family. There's a lot of loud voices now that speak up against adoption. What do you have to say to those people?
So the anti-adoption crew has a mission. And number one in life, I'm a publicist. So you always hear more bad stories than you hear good because the world is sensationalized by them. So that's the first problem. Second problem is they're very upset. The group, typically speaking, the group is either birth mothers who their baby from decades ago, or even sadly sometimes today, who their babies were stolen from them. They were told they had to do a closed adoption. It was wrong on every level. Then there's angry international adoptees who have come to America only to be stripped of their color, of their heritage, and of their history. I stand with them. And then there's the angry group of domestic adoptees from past generation that were the stolen babies, that have, because of that, there's no paper trail. There's not even a PI trail because there's nothing except maybe DNA if you get lucky. There's the adoptees that were never told they were adopted. So by the time they find out, it's decades of damage. The list goes on. Okay, so that's it. Now, the sad part is, the anti-adoption crew doesn't like me because they just don't like me. That's fine. B, they don't like me because I actually side with them and I tell them that. So that just stirs every pot, but I do. And because the world is listening to how they were wronged, and it is so friggin' horrific how that whole group of people was wronged, I at least set out to raise my children differently, to honor their birth parents differently, to include, to tell my kids as babies on day 1 and day 4, when they were placed in my arms, adoption, adoption, adoption. Ask my kids when they found out they were adopted, because everybody wants to ask my kids this. And they look at them and they say, is this a trick question? To me, as I'm standing there, I'm like, it is a trick question, because everybody assumes it was a, I have something to tell you moment. You tell your kids they are adopted the minute they are placed in their arms. And if they're old enough to not fit in your arms, trust me, they already know they're adopted. That's the first thing. Tell your baby the story. So by the time it's seamless. They never know not being adopted, because it's how you honor them. It's how you honor their story. And the anti-adoption people hate adoption. Believe me, I get the emails of what they think I should do with my nonprofit, with all the money I raise. And I tell them back, your idea sounds good too. Why don't you start a nonprofit? Which we know isn't the point, right? We know that's not the point. But the problem is this. Your trauma cannot be placed on someone else. They go online as predators behind fake names and draw innocent kids who are adoptees today into their lair and poison them and tell them they're not loved and tell them all this terrible stuff about adoption, which they don't know it's not true. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not here to debate that. And that's my beef. And I've done videos about it, my 30 seconds with Becky Fawcett. Your trauma is your trauma. I don't care what the category is. You cannot put your trauma on someone else. End of story. And if you're angry, hello, you use your anger for good. You use your anger to make change. You don't just sit here and attack everybody else. Because when you just attack everybody else without doing something to make it better, your message gets lost. And then they go online to try to sway lovely families who want to adopt, that it's the worst thing they could ever do. And I don't like that, because now what happens to these kids who don't come home? And I do want, because they were erased, their stories were erased, they don't understand that there's a slight possibility that maybe adoption was the only way, and that the reality might have been 10 times worse. And I can't not say that, because life's not perfect. Biology, adopted, nothing is guaranteed, and everybody carries their own thing that is horrific. Everybody. I've learned that as an almost 55-year-old woman. Everybody carries, they might not tell you what it is, but everybody carries something that is horrific to them, that was life-changing to them, that keeps them from being whole every step of the way. And my goal with talking about adoption and how to celebrate it and how to be open and how to do all these things that make us better, let's give these kids a fighting chance, because they're just kids. And grown-up decisions are made for them, past decades and now, that they're not a part of. And our job, my job with my kids, is to make their life as good as it can be. Do we talk about some of the ugly sides of adoption? Yeah, because I'm brave enough to talk about it with them. And I encourage other adoptive parents. Life's not perfect. You're going to have some ugly conversations with any kid growing up if you do this right. Because guess what? If they come to you to have the ugly conversation, you're doing a great job. They trust you.
Amen. Amen. And you're committing to those conversations if you choose adoption, by the way. And if you're not committing, don't adopt.
And not every adoption professional says that up front. There's not enough training on what is it like to adopt a child outside of your race. Can you handle that? Do you live in a part of the country where that might work? Will your kid feel good at school? All these things. These are things to consider. Can you handle? And a lot can and a lot can't. But where I really have seen trouble over the years when people reach out to me or I hear, they never thought for a minute that adopting outside of their race might not be easy. And adoption is not easy, period. But adopting outside of your race presents a different level too. There's different layers there. And to pretend that that child's heritage or that child's color or whatever the case may be doesn't exist is dishonoring the child. And they're going to feel it. And that's not going to work well.
Yep. Yep. I always tell people, if you don't tell your child their story, they're going to grow up and hate you.
Well,
and then you'll
this
have,
is it.
I mean,
This is it. And the sad part is, like, I still to this day have people tell me, I haven't told my kid yet. I'm like, well, Christ, if I know, this is terrible. We're not even close. You know, here's the deal. If you think that you cannot tell a child that they are adopted, you should not be adopting. And I that's going to piss some people off too. But here's the deal. In today's day and age, with social media and DNA, you will lose because they'll do it without you. Okay. They'll do it without you. And then you lose and you will not be able to repair that. And the other thing is, you've set your kid up for failure. I always told people early on, because they said, I can't believe you tell your kids their birth parents' names at such an early age. And I go, I'm not stupid. First name only, people. But I also, when I only do first name only when they were little, I would tell them, if you're going to go searching or want to meet them, I'm the one who's going to help you do it, pay for the plane ticket, and get you there. Come to me when you're ready. I'll check in here and there. You'll tell me if you're ready or not. You don't want them doing this stuff alone. That's it. And you want to honor their story, honor their coming into it all. And everybody says, this is it. Well, Becky Fawcett, you've made this, you're so comfortable with this. So your kids, of course, were fine. No. My oldest didn't want to meet her birth mother. I've been in touch the whole 15 years until she turned 15. And then all of a sudden she did. I kept checking in because her birth mother wanted to meet her sooner. But Jane drives the bus, and we're all on board with Jane drives the bus. Brooke drives the bus. 15. So Jane came in. Now, knowing what I now know, would I have suggested it and forced it a little earlier? Maybe. But it really is important to let your children, adopted or not, come into themselves in their own time. And always offer the support along the way. Brooke, unfortunately, she never got to meet her birth mother.
Yeah, that's hard. I struggled with that. That let him drive, because we both have open adoptions with our children and their families. And I really struggled with, do I let him drive the bus and lead the way, or do I force it earlier? And I chose the opposite. I chose to force it earlier because I didn't think he would until much later, if ever. And I was too nervous about that. And I knew how important it would be. And it did end up being a really good thing. I think I bring that up because there's no you have to know your children. You have to know, the relationships and all of that. And that's one of the difficult parts that could be in open adoption. What other?
Well, there's two things here. Number one,
go ahead.
I think I looked the other way either. I was constantly checking in, saying, oh, I got off the phone with Victoria. She sent me this picture, or, oh, I did this. And you sure
you want to see it?
Write her an email? You want to write her an email? You want to get on the phone? With guidance. Okay. So there's that's what mothering is, right? You're in there with guidance. Now, there are some situations where it's not okay. It's not a safe situation.
Right.
It's not a good situation. And there are adoptions out there where open is impossible. Or if it is a stork drop, you might not have anything. Okay. If it is
explain what a stork drop is.
A stork drop is when a woman walks into a hospital, gives birth, hasn't been educated, hasn't been anything, runs in fear out, maybe gives birth under a fake name because she's terrified because no one did their job to counsel her properly. And that baby, you have 24 hours to turn around and that baby becomes yours and you get nothing except
A
a
baby.
beautiful story and a baby and a family. So sometimes the details aren't available. Sometimes it's a closed adoption very sternly by the birth mother, which I think also they're afraid of, and they don't realize how beautiful and lovely open adoption can be. A lot of birth mothers think they're going to hate me. Jane's did. She doesn't want to meet me over the years because she hates me for placing her. And I go, oh, wait a minute. Let's back up for a minute. That's not how I talk about you at all in this household, number one. And I can't predict if when she's a teenager, if she will hate being adopted temporarily, because quite frankly, the teenagers, myself included, we hate everything as teenagers. But hate you will not be tolerated in my household. We will sit down and discuss that immediately. So please erase that as the issue. Well, that's not it. That's not how we talk about you. But there are situations where I'll say this. What if a birth parent is a dangerous criminal in prison? It happens. That might not be the situation for everybody either. But the families that take that situation need to know wholeheartedly that eventually your child's going to ask, and how are you going to deal with it? And I do go back to the adoption professionals. There needs to be better education there, because I know a few families where that was not explained. And now they have teenagers pressing the issue, and it's not great. And there was no early, see what I mean? We all have to just share these stories and talk about it so that when someone decides to adopt, maybe they have a good resource that's non-biased, like Help Us Adopt. I don't make any money if you decide to adopt or not. I have no financial gain in the game. What questions do you ask? If you're given a situation that makes your blood curl, which you might, how do you deal with that? All these things. So this is sort of it, is that I just can't say, like, and no one offends me with a question unless it's nasty. We don't do nastiness around Becky Fawcett and Help Us Adopt. You can take that somewhere else. But
ditto.
If you thought it, I thought it. And that's why I threw everything out there, right? I thought it. I was terrified. I didn't want to adopt. Have we even said that? My kids know that now, and they tell me the joke's on me, because now my whole career is around motherhood and adoption. Joke's
and you've given $5 million over the years.
$8 over $8 million.
I'm so sorry. Over $8 million
as of now. And you already said we're adding $2.7 million to that 8 just in 2025 alone.
That's amazing.
The world
Tell me
wants more adoptees. I had my best year ever last year. Donors, they love what we do. Some are adopted, some are not, some are parents, some are not. They get it. They get it.
I love it.
They want the world to have more adoptees and more adoptive families. And I don't know the last time an organization told the adoption community, we see you and we see your value. Here we are.
Yes. And I know Help Us Adopt is one of the very biggest grant organizations. Of course, there's room for all of them. You know, there's plenty of places. There's places for the religious only, or the same sex only, or the whatever.
There's no one for the same sex only. There's no.
Oh, there isn't. I don't even know. But there has to be some for everybody.
Same sex only.
Right. Okay. I didn't know that.
Few, if any, who are non-religiously affiliated, like HelpUsAdopt.org.
Yeah.
So there are pockets, and there's a lot of them. If you're a single parent, it's not good out there. We are a catch-all for everybody. And the point of that also is, besides it's the way my brain works, everybody is invited to my table. Everybody. I will just keep building a longer table. I want everybody to be seen and heard. And I might not be able to give you a grant, but I'll be damned if you are going to feel less than because someone else tells you shouldn't be a parent.
Tell me a story.
That's not happening.
Tell me a story about a difference you've made by one of your grants.
God almighty.
Just one. We don't have all day.
So, I don't know, 6 months ago, we upped our largest grant from $20,000 to $30,000.
That is, can we just stop there for a second?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good.
Pretty good? That is pretty amazing.
It's pretty amazing.
I've never heard of anybody giving that amount of money. with one grant.
Okay.
Amazing.
So our
Okay.
mission here, while the parents or parent think we're helping them, which we are, our mission here at Help Us Adopt and why our donors love us is our goal is to take a family who is not going to get to the end of the finish line, no matter what they are doing. Okay. They just can't get there. And so that our grant money enables them. It's a finish line grant. We come in at the end. We give it to you in the middle, but you can't use it till the end. We'll get to that later. We're going to get to that later. And if you're listening to this and you want to pull up HelpUsAdopt.org, that's where you'll find us. Our money helps complete the adoption and bring a kid home who might not have come home without it. There are people out there. I was one of them. I got to the finish line technically on my own. It was ugly. And the second time I did it with help. That's not a proud moment for anybody. But I had no choice if I wanted to have a second baby. Okay, so let's talk about that. Yeah. Help is okay. We've now built, based on my personal experiences, an organization that not only says we will help you, I'm empowering people to come to us to ask for financial help. You won't be made to feel less than here. Because I was in your shoes at one point, and while I didn't have a grant, I had a grandmother. Okay? So it's a very important point in all of this. Why do I do this? I didn't do it alone. I didn't do it alone. And no one made me feel less than. Believe me, I was doing that to myself. Okay? I was doing that to myself. But I want to empower you to ask for help. Tell us your story. Okay? It's just so important. It's so important about this asking for help. And now I have totally lost track of what you told me to
I
answer.
asked if there was a particular story.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So it tied in. Now I got it.
Great.
It ties in back to the $30,000.
Okay. Right.
We go to give our first $30,000 grant. And you don't have to edit my faux pas out because that's part of what makes me me. Okay. It's all good. It's all good. You leave that in there.
I will.
You leave that in there. So our first $30,000 grant went to a single woman. I'll leave
all the single ladies. I'm
going to leave out any identifying factors. Okay.
Okay.
She wanted to be a mother so badly that she gave up her living situation to move back in with her parents and her grandparents in a multi-generational home, which quite frankly, maybe jokes aside, I think we all should be doing this. This is a lovely concept. Okay.
The older I get, the more.
So she did this to save money. And so there would be childcare to watch this child when she brought him home, because she was not adopting an infant, because she had to go back to work as a public school teacher. Her gross income was $42,000 a year.
Hopefully not New York City.
No.
Okay.
And we gave her 30.
Wow. Almost a full year's salary.
Almost a full year's salary. Why does that feel good? Why does that feel good? Besides the obvious. Because here's the deal. I get up every day and lead a team and a board and a group of donors who I have told, you're never going to regret in these situations being too kind or too generous. That's what we do. We relieve you. I thought she, and so did my grant committee, made such valiant strides on her own, and you do the math for her take-home pay out of $42,000, to do this on her own almost all the way. And we took that stress away from her and gave her more than she asked for. Okay? We hadn't advertised the grant yet, and that's why that situation came up, because we don't always do that. So before anybody gets too excited, we don't always do that. You should ask for what you need, and we'll get to that later. But we gave her 30, and we believed in her. We believed in her foresight to build this home, this multi-generational home, where that child will be loved. That child will be celebrated. She as a mother will be loved and celebrated and supported while she goes out to keep that job. She said, I don't get to make the calls anymore. Erin gets to make the calls. It's one of the pieces I miss as this builds up and I don't get to do everything anymore. She said on the phone and then in a thank you to us, no one in my life has ever believed in me this way except a group of strangers.
Wow.
And that, my friends, is why I go to work every day.
Mm.
If you don't feel good doing that kind of work,
Goosies.
you're not on my team. You're not on my board. You're not a donor. This is what we do. And when people say, because I know you're going to say it, Rebecca, you have changed everybody's life. They have changed mine. They've changed mine. The grant
That's why we
recipients
do
think
what
I'm
we do.
crazy when I start crying when I meet them and when I tell them I love them, because I do. Jane will also say, gee, Mom, for 853 babies, you're looking pretty thin these days. This is it. And I'm not Jewish, but you know this because your
I
name's
am.
Rebecca and you're Jewish. Rebecca's Hebrew meaning means mother to many.
Actually, I did not know that. Wow.
Who
And
knew?
look at us.
Who knew? Someone told me that along the way. A rabbi told me that along the way. Now, you can imagine when he told me that I fell into a chair and burst into tears. So there's that. But this is it. Like, I have 8,000 more stories like this. How about cancer survivors?
Well, let's take
Childhood
it.
cancer survivors. Like, we have changed lives of these stories that they might go through life thinking, this will never work. No one will ever help me. And here we are. And, it just is really an amazing thing. And some people will say, well, I'm not going to apply because you don't have enough money to go around. Well, here's the message to that. Do you need help? Can you ignore the fact that every 60 days I'm giving almost $500,000 away in adoption grants? You want to ignore that? Because someone's getting the money. Why not you? And if you can show us financial need and show us that you're making every effort possible to do this on your own and write a good personal statement, you have as good a chance as anybody else. And you ask for what you need. Okay. So you have to outline it. Don't need $5,000 and ask me for 30, because A, that's not going to happen. And B, that doesn't make you look very good. Okay. So let's be honest. And we're not here to totally take the responsibility off you to become an adoptive parent. We're here to help you and step in where you can't. And do you need to drain your savings to nothing? Maybe not. Are you adopting a special needs child that will need care when you get home? Tell us. Tell us. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if you tell me you want a grant because you want to keep going on vacations while you're adopting,
you're not getting the grant.
No, because none of us do as adoptive parents. No one wants to write this check, but we do. And for those who can, we are grateful to that fact. For those who can't, apply to us. Tell us. Bring us in the door. All right? You can't touch your IRA. We get that. You have nothing left to bring out of your house in equity. We get that. But you have to tell us. You have to apply. Do not sign the deal as a no before you apply. And that said, yes, we get many more people than we can help, but why not you?
I love it. Becky, that's amazing. And I love your passion for it. And I think everybody who works in adoption has this strong passion for what they do. And I love that you get the privilege, as I do, to help so many families. You started a project called Faces of Adoption. I think that's what it's called, Faces of Adoption. What is it, and why did you start it? What are you hoping to do with Faces of Adoption?
So it started,
and you have really cool sweatshirts.
That's new, but this whole project started years ago. We did fundraising events like everybody does. Okay. At the beginning, we just did them fine. Then as we grew, we started to get pictures sent to us of the kids that we helped bring home and the families that we helped build. And we went into a new space in New York City that was a great room, but a difficult room because it had these damn pillars that were 4-sided pillars in the middle of the room. Okay, so I had to put tables on the outside of the pillars. I had to put tables on the inside of the pillars, and I had to put a stage in the middle. It was challenging, but it was the only place that we could afford that would hold as many people as we needed because we were young. And I do watch budgets. I don't spend money like a lunatic. So I said, what if we took these pictures and made blow up posters with our logo on it and put them on all four sides of the pillar? So instead, if your table's stuck or your seat is stuck behind a pillar, instead of looking at a pillar and being mad, you're looking at the face of a cute family or a cute kid that we helped bring home, and you can't be as mad as you really could have been. So we try it. I get to set up. The events people had put the posters up. And I look around. It was probably year, I don't know, 7. Now I'm going into year 18. Maybe it was earlier, but I look around and I go, oh, look at all these beautiful faces of adoption. And that was it. The next year, that's what our event was called, Faces of Adoption New York. And then it was Faces of Adoption Philadelphia. And then I realized that that was interchangeable. So if I'm ever in other cities, it's Faces of Adoption, whoever. Not that we will be, but the door's open. And we are national. I mean, events being in other cities. We help adoptions and grants and applicants in every state. So that's it. And then I trademarked it. And then the next step after the trademark was a page on our website that was a storytelling platform. And the reason, like everything else I do, is different. Maybe it came from somewhere else, but it's different the way I do it, is that it was inclusive. Anybody could submit their story. Again, we tell the truth. Okay, so if you go on this page on our website, not every story that is told is beautiful, but they're not nasty. Okay, so this is it. We acknowledge the hard part about adoption, and we want those truths to come out so that those birth mothers, adoptive parents, if they adopt whatever, or adoptees, they feel heard. And it's their story. It's when it gets nasty and finger pointing and slanderous that we don't publish those stories, in case anybody's getting any big ideas. And I always tell people, they're like, I have freedom of speech. I'm like, yeah, but not on my page, not on my website. Take your freedom of speech elsewhere. Okay. So we share the truth, and it's everybody. We even have allies. Like there's a woman on there whose godchild is adopted. She's not what you would think is a face of adoption. And my goal with this back then with the storytelling platform is to show the depth, right? My parents are faces of adoption because of me, because of their grandchildren. My siblings are faces of adoption because of me, because of their nieces. Their best friends are faces of adoption because their friend is adopted. Get it? We're going somewhere here. Fast forward. All of a sudden I decide, and this was in response to angry, nasty, anti-adoption people. I'm like, okay, I do want to validate their stories because I get it. And I'm not going to sit here all day and long. This is another reason I make them mad. You go free wild. I can't change your life. I can't change your story. And if you're that toxic, that's yours to own, not mine. I'm going to flood the world with positive stories and videos. And I'm going to make this t-shirt, sweatshirt, that I pay for. I'm not even asking you, Rebecca, if you want to do one, to pay for the sweatshirt. But what you have to do for me, and you'll get an instruction sheet in it, you got to give me a video. And here's, generally speaking, what the video needs to say. Feel free to ad lib. Done.
I'm in.
And that's it. It's not a professional statement, so you can't promote your business. You can only say, I'm a mom by adoption, and why you like the work of Help Us Adopt. So if you really hate what we do, you shouldn't even be taking a sweatshirt from me anyway, because you don't want to wear it. There's that. And that's what we're doing. And it's slow because I do this in my spare time, and yeah, and I got to pay for the sweatshirts. So the sweatshirts go out, and until the videos come back, I don't place another order. We've got a wait list of people who want to do this. It's terrific. If you're listening and you want to do this, find me on social media, Becky Snyder Fawcett, find Help Us Adopt, send us a message. It will get to me. We're small. And that's
Speaking
it.
of social media, Becky Fawcett.
Yeah.
I love that. You have now coined your 30 seconds with Becky Fawcett. And I have to tell you, when you first started, this total, I'm going to tell you, when you first started it, which wasn't too long ago, I don't think.
It was, I think it was right as we were coming out of COVID.
Oh, really? Okay. Then I don't know if that's when I first saw it, but I was like, 30 seconds, that doesn't really roll off your tongue. I don't get it. And then, sometimes it's longer and sometimes it's a little shorter.
As my husband's business people, of which I'm amazed they follow me and I love that. He goes to a conference and this one guy's like, I want to know how many pairs of sunglasses she actually has. Because I'm always wearing sunglasses in them. And they all look
huge.
The same.
Yep.
They all look the same. So there's that. And he goes, and she does realize she's never 30 seconds. And it's like, she's aware. But she's it's usually a minute. Now, if I have to talk about something horrific, you're going to have 4 minutes of me.
Four 30 seconds. But I have to tell you, Becky, it is brilliant. It is now something I look for and I love, even though it was like, what's 30 seconds? And then, I'm like, okay, she is a PR person. Up and down and around the bend, but I'm the person that has to have a different color on my nails every single week.
Oh no.
So
Wicked.
yes, see, it's all about the brand and you've got it. The glasses, the blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I love the 30 seconds with Becky Fawcett. And one of the things I love about it is because of what you've shown here. You don't hold back. What's one opinion, or maybe there's more, that you've shared that has gotten really strong reactions, both either positive or negative? I mean, the negative is more fun, but either one.
So there's a lot. And you already have listened to this podcast this far, and you're like, Jesus, everything she says is a nightmare.
No, not a nightmare. And
I'm being tongue in cheek, but like,
I know
I say everything that no one wants to talk about because I don't. Come at me? What are you going to do? It's my voice. It's my platform. And again, I'm not being slanderous. I'm talking about the intricacies that aren't okay, that other people, anti-adoption people, have told you is not okay. And you're still not listening to them, right? They don't like when I support them back that way. Maybe they wouldn't be so angry if the world had listened to them earlier. Did we ever stop to think about that? No. I think one of the main things that I get all the time is referring to myself as an adoptive mother. Now, hear me out before you say, what everybody wants to say is, you're just a mom. Fine. Please know also that when I refer to myself as an adoptive mother or a mom by adoption, I do not walk into my children's classroom and say, hi, I'm Becky Fawcett, Jane's mom by adoption. That's not how this works, okay? So on that platform, you're right, I'm Jane's mom. And if her birth mother was here, she would say, Becky's Jane's mom. I'm her birth mother, okay? They're two separate things. Now, the reason I talk about myself as I'm a mom by adoption or things like this is because, number one, I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it. And at first I couldn't say those words out loud when I was heading out of IVF world into adoption land. Scared the crap out of me, okay? And so I worked very hard to get comfortable with that because I knew, gut instinct, I had to if I was going to be a mom by adoption. This is my family, right? I can't have my kids growing up thinking I'm not okay with all this. So I worked really hard about it. And then I realized that if I was working really hard about it and I was successful, there was going to be a lot of other people who weren't willing to work hard at it out of the gate because they were too scared. Or they were going to work hard about it and not be able to get through the gate, and they were going to crash and burn. So I lead with it. because I can't even tell you how great it is. It's so great. Someone will be like, oh my God, my grandfather was adopted. I was at a meeting with a big network on television, and I found out that the director of marketing's father was adopted. They had 24 hours way back then to turn it around, too. You make connections. I hear people's stories. Now, all of a sudden, I was thinking about adopting. Tell me about it. I had no idea my kids look like they came out of my body. Fate. I had no idea that kids could actually look like you. Tell me how you did that. I go, well, here's the first thing. I didn't adopt outside of my race. And the rest, their birth mothers chose me because of that. We made them feel comfortable. One looked like me, and one looked like Kip, my husband. So we made them feel comfortable. They told me that. Okay. So this is how these things come into play in ways you couldn't have predicted. But I am a mom by adoption. I'm very proud to be that mom. It took me 9 years from start to finish to complete my family of 2 and 190,000 in after-tax dollars to do it. I earned those stripes, and I am proud to use those stripes to share the story and strength with someone else. And no one wants to refer to me as a mom by adoption. It's disrespectful to you. It devalues you. I go, honey, I'm fine. If it devalues you, that's a different issue. It does not devalue me. It lends my strength to other people, and it tells the world there's nothing wrong with being a family built by adoption. It's a good thing. It can be a good thing. It's not shameful. It's not secretive. I don't feel less of a woman because I didn't give birth. I've been asked that. Trust me. 9 years, those are more labor pains than most people ever go through in a lifetime. I earned those stripes too. And that's it. I really, when I talk about these things that aren't the norm, in a way, I'm not scared of it. Same way I talk about infertility and miscarriage and all those needles and all that nightmare and thinking, I can't do this. Mm. No one wants to talk about that either. And what happens when IVF fails? No one wants to talk about that. Well, guess what? It fails all the time.
Well, I love that you have so much to say and you have so much heart for adoption. Another thing you have heart for and a passion for is fashion. And so you might be watching this right now. Wow. And, Becky is always a fashion plate. And you're starting a new podcast. Tell us about it.
A new podcast. So it's going to be called The Fawcett Report, coming out late spring 2025. And It's not all about adoption. It's about me. I'm the magic. I'm the magic. And I was in advertising and magazines. I was director of marketing for Luxury Lifestyle magazine. I was then a luxury lifestyle publicist. I have my own firm. And this is my brand. I love getting dressed every day. I've never had a job in fashion. It's just something I love to do. And I live in Manhattan. And this is part of 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett, the next step. And I invite people, believe me, if you liked what I'm going to talk about things no one wants to talk about. Now, if we talk about fashion and restaurants in New York and living in New York and how my 11-year-olds would take the subway to middle school by themselves, people are interested in that, right? That's not a life anybody else in the country is living. So all these things are good and interesting. And will all roads lead back to my favorite topic? Yes. Will all roads then lead from adoption to help us adopt some way? Yes. Watch how I do it. And the point is to broaden this topic. I want the world to learn more about adoption in a way that they might not see it coming, because that's adoption. You can't pigeonhole adoption. You can't say it's a certain thing. So I'm very excited to do this. It's so on brand for me in every single way of how I live my life every day. Running around New York City, head to toe black with wicked nail polish and all these bracelets on. Like, this is it. And if you like 30 Seconds, you're going to love this. And there might even be a 30-second surprise in all of this. Every episode you'll have to listen and see. And it's going to be good. I hope. If it's not, I will pivot and we will do something else. But I'm very hopeful about it. And it will all tie in.
I love it. We'll definitely share it when you start publicizing it, and I can't wait to hear how that goes for you. I wish you luck on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
And I'm so grateful to have been here today. Thank you.
yeah. Is there anything else people should know if they want to apply for a grant? Do you have
This is
any?
it. This is
Yeah.
the one thing that adoption
Okay.
professionals are telling their customers. And I'm here to tell you it's a bad idea. If you need a grant, especially applying to us, if you need financial help of any sort, and it's monumental, we give $30,000 grants for a reason. So I get it. They're telling you to apply to like 10 different places and ask everybody for a little amount. That is very, very, very bad advice. And quite frankly, most families don't qualify at 10 different places. So let's call that out too, especially with us. And you might have to apply for small grants at the other places because that's all they're giving you. But if you apply to me, Help Us Adopt, and you need $20,000 or $30,000, and you've asked me for 4, that doesn't look good either. Because I'm going to ask you, what happens to the other 26, right? What's the plan for the other 26? So you play the game with everybody else, and that's none of my business. But when you apply to Help Us Adopt, I want you to ask for what you need. You're going to have to justify it. You'll see that in the application, but you ask us for what you need, not what you think we'll give you, what you need. I'm not here to clean up all this other little grant stuff in the world. That's not my mission either. My mission is to empower you and give you the breath of relief that it's yours and waiting for when you need it. So please look at your numbers, answer the application properly, take your time. Remember, we give money. It's all on the website 6 times a year, all the cycles, all the deadlines, read the FAQs, and take time with your personal statement. Do not tell me that you want to be a parent through adoption. Everybody does who applies to us. Tell me what makes you tick. Tell me why your story is different. Tell me. That's our window into you, okay? And I can't stress that enough, that it's your chance. We're asking you for it. You're not giving us stuff we don't want to read. You're giving us what we're asking you for.
If somebody makes
know about you.
$150,000 or more, does that disqualify them?
No. I'm going to tell you why. A, we take into cost of living in America. So there's that. And you know what that means if you're listening, okay? There's certain parts of America where that does not go as far as it does somewhere else, okay? So take that. There are people who might have made that and applied to us a year ago, and we didn't help you, okay? Because you could do it on your own. Wasn't going to be pretty, and I apologize for that, but you could do it on your own. And then fast forward 6 months, and you had a debilitating failed adoption that you lost $35,000 in. And now we got a different story. And I'm terrified, and so sorry that that happened to you. But apply again. It happens. I've watched it. Someone get a grant when that happens. And again, it's not my dream list. Believe me, I don't want this to happen to you. But the reason you shouldn't apply is if you can write the check pretty easily. Again, you don't have to like it. I didn't like it, but I had it. And that's the difference. If you think you need financial help, honestly, then you probably do. If you're struggling, you probably do. If you don't know how that next payment is coming, apply. And that's it. And I don't put rules and regulations on this, Rebecca, because here's the deal. I trust you to do the right thing. So how's that for guilt? I think that human beings are innately great. I do. And that's what I go to sleep with every night and what I get up with every morning. So if you really truly think you have a case, apply. Now, if you make over 200, I'm going to tell you, cost of living or not, it's probably not happening for you. Our sweet spot right now, I have to date this in case someone hears this podcast, is February 2025. Maybe she'll put this in March 2025. We give grants from $40,000 and up to maybe $150,000, depending again on everything. And $40,000 most of the time is a single parent in the middle of the country, and I'm always amazed at how much they save on their own. So there's that. There's no judgment. Your story is unique to you. There's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Becky. This was filled with golden nuggets today. And before I let you go, I have a couple rapid fires for you. Ready?
Great. I'm good.
Give a shout out to one person or organization other than your own that has influenced your adoption journey or the work you're doing in adoption.
I don't know that there's one.
Okay, I'll let you
I'm
have
going to
two.
give it to Victoria and Kelly. I dedicated Help Us Adopt to my children's birth mothers because they changed my life. Everybody thinks I changed theirs, but that's how it works. They're the ones that keep me going.
What's one piece of advice you would like to share with adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents?
Tune out the naysayers. Everybody who hasn't adopted or doesn't know an adoptive family or has nothing to do with it will tell you why this is the wrong way to go. Tune them out. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they have no business butting into yours.
What's one thing you wish every adoptive parent knew before they brought their child home?
It is so easy to love a child that didn't come from your body.
Describe adoption in 3 words.
Help us adopt.
Adoption is not just a destination. It's a journey filled with love, resilience, and growth. Wherever you are on this roadmap, trust in your path. Stay open to learning and always lead with your heart. You already have everything you need to create a beautiful story for your family. And when the road takes unexpected detours, I'm here to help you navigate every turn along the adoption roadmap. Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. If you did, I have a few favors to ask of you. First, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I'd love to hear your takeaways. Please write a review and let me know what you liked. And if you have a question or a suggestion on what you'd like to hear, I'd love to hear that too. Please shoot me an email at support@rgadoptionconsulting.com and let me know what you'd like to hear about. And if you have a question, I may just answer it online. Thanks again for listening. Tune in every Wednesday and Friday morning for a brand new episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.